What's going on, Axrora Alliance, and welcome back to another Star Wars gaming top 10 lists. Now today we're going to be naming the top 10 worst Star Wars games of all time. This includes things from terrible controls, frustrating head-on crashes, pointless difficulty, and moronic mechanics which make these games a stain on the name Star Wars. At number 10 we have Rebel Assault 2, The Hidden Empire. This was for PC, and we all remember thinking that Rebel Assault 2 was an incredibly cool game when it first came out, being blown away by the seamless fusion of full motion video and computer generated graphics that would undoubtedly never be topped. Something a lot of people remember much less fondly are the infuriatingly cumbersome vehicle controls, which are probably the only part of the game that holds up worse than the direct-to-video visuals. That said, we can't obviously fault LucasArts for trying something new, and if nothing else, Rebel Assault 2, The Hidden Empire is one of the coolest sounding Star Wars games, bar Star Wars Battlefront. At number 9 we have Star Wars Masters of TERAS for PlayStation. Star Wars is full of sword-wielding space wizards, robots, assassins, and bizarre aliens, so given the right approach, a Star Wars fighting game could have been incredible. Unfortunately, we got Masters of TERAS, which chose to go the three-dimensional route during the very early days of making video games with polygons, and it didn't exactly deliver on the gameplay front. It wasn't all bad though. To the best of my knowledge, it was the first time in video game history players could be Boba Fett, and the only time they could play as his expanded universe imposter, Jodo Kast. Unfortunately, the game controlled like Battle Arena Toshiden if you fed Battle Arena Toshiden a bottle of Quaaludes and drizzled it in molasses. But at least Mara Jade features in this game. At number 8 we have Star Wars for Famicom. This is the famous Japanese Famicom Star Wars game where Darth Vader turns into a scorpion. Star Wars for the Famicom makes the cut not only because its enemies bear no resemblance to the movie, but also because it is punishingly difficult even for the time. With only 3 lives, 1-hit kills, and brutally unfair levels, players must rely on memorization to survive this abomination of a video game. At number 7 we have Return of the Jedi for arcade. Remember that hoverbike level from Battletoads and how hard it was and how much you actually hated it and how terrible it was? Imagine that, but with an entire video game. At number 6 we have Star Wars The New Droid Army for Game Boy Advanced. The New Droid Army is a game about using the Force to fight mostly brain-dead enemy droids and aliens. Problems arise when your player runs out of Force powers, which happens constantly, and is forced to literally stand in place to recharge them. Collecting power-ups or collectibles won't actually do that for you. You literally have to stand and wait, and stand and wait, and stand and wait until your Jedi is ready to fight another wave and drain his power again. Action games are supposed to be fun, and standing around is the opposite of fun. Number 5 we have The Force Unleashed 2 for Nintendo DS. Whereas the first Force Unleashed port for the Nintendo DS was a competent and unique touchscreen take on the console action game of the same name, Force Unleashed 2 was a broken and repetitive stylus smasher that ended up doing more damage to your DS's little screen than to the Empire itself. Using a combination of wonky D-pad presses and violent touchscreen stabs and swipes, players smashed their way through wave after wave of mindless enemies until the game was over. At number 4 we have Star Wars Episode 1 Racer for Game Boy Color. Like the film or not, Episode 1's pod race scene is one of the most memorable and instantly recognisable moments from the franchise's history, and the console and PC tie-in game Episode 1 Racer did an admirable job of recreating the film's intense racing sequence. The Game Boy Color version ditched the 3D graphics for a top-down sprite-based racing game where it was impossible for players to see more than a few feet in front of them. The result was a pod race crashing simulator where players spent more time smashing into walls than soaring through the canyons of Tatooine. At number 3 we have Yoda Stories for Game Boy Color. The PC version of Yoda Stories is a cute little desktop adventure, a bit like Chip's Challenge but with Minox and Rhodians. As a poor kid with an incredibly crappy PC growing up, many people sunk way too many hours into a Yoda Stories demo, and since it was procedurally generated, we felt like we never played the same demo twice. Unfortunately, unlike the PC demo, the Game Boy Color port wasn't free, and didn't have any of the quaint Chip's Challenge charm that the PC version had. It was a mess, and IGN rightfully gave it a 2 out of 10. There were quite a few awful handheld ports of much better Star Wars games that didn't even make this list. But this slimy mudhole definitely deserves to be here. At number 2 we have Star Wars Flight of the Falcon for Game Boy Advance. Flight of the Falcon manages to make piloting the Millennium Falcon less fun than algebra homework. Imagine Star Fox, but boring, bland, endlessly repetitive, and painfully tiny. Rarely has such a wonderful source material been so grotesquely squandered. There's simply nothing to love at all here. And at number 1 we have KINECT Star Wars for Xbox 360. The KINECT Star Wars failed us on multiple levels. It fundamentally didn't work as a KINECT game. The motion controls and body tracking dipped in and out so rapidly that players ended up looking like the Star Wars kid than Luke Skywalker. Being a Jedi involves style and mastery of the Force. Playing one in KINECT Star Wars involves flailing wildly, jumping around like a maniac, and generally just fighting against the controls more than fighting the Empire. It didn't work as a music game either, as Star Wars inspired remixes of songs like Hollaback Girl, Hologram Girl, and YMCA, Empire Today, actively made those songs worse. It felt more like a disjointed collection of broken Star Wars themed minigames rather than a cohesive finished product. Those are the picks for the worst Star Wars games ever inflicted upon an unsuspecting galaxy. What Star Wars games did I actually leave out of this list? Let me know down in the comment section below, and smash a like on this video if you have enjoyed it, and subscribe to join the Axrora Alliance and be kept up to date with all things Star Wars. Other than that, may the Force be with you.